Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. Thanks for being here. Please take a second to hit the thumbs up and the like and all the such. I am joined by an amazing guest today, Margaret Klein Salerman, who wrote Facing the Climate Emergency. As you know, I talk about the climate crisis regularly. It is something we will be dealing with for the rest of our lives. So I think it's best for us to confront it and stop being children about it. So I think that's really important. And I also, after that, I'm going to be discussing the latest Trump indictments, the racketeering charges, etc. But I want to get to this interview first, and I'm really excited to have her on. She has an incredible book called Facing the Climate Emergency, which I have just read, and and it's accessible. I know when you say the word book, people think, oh no, are we talking like I've got to devote my summer to this? It is, look, it's not even very, look, it's just, you can handle this, folks. You really can. But it's an incredibly important book. And that is why I wanted to talk to her. So please welcome Margaret Klein Salerman. Hello.
Hi, Lee. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for reading the book.
Yeah, absolutely. It is incredibly well written, but just important. And I think it's not just the only book I've read like this, but you're one of the only people I've spoken to like this who both acknowledges the climate crisis in a way of like, oh, this is catastrophic. This is kind of everything. This is the basis of everything else we're talking about, is kind of on top of this crisis. And also, though, I don't leave the book thinking, well, I should just go hang myself. That's done. It's very empowering in a very unique way. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, so I'm as a psychologist by training, my goal with this book is like to get as close as I can to like offering psychotherapy, climate psychotherapy to people so that we process it, we get into it, we get into the feelings, and then we talk about, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So that's the goal, therapy in a book.
Yeah, I grew up with a psychotherapist father, so I can feel that. But I actually did. I went to, it was either one or two therapy appointments back probably 12 to 15 years ago. And I didn't tell the person, and I was feeling stressed and depressed. And I said, it's basically about where the world's headed. And I didn't just say climate crisis, but that was part of it. And the guy just looked like no one had ever said such a thing to him in his life. And he kind of was just baffled and just tried to change the subject. And I was like, how is this not a common thing that people need help facing what we're facing?
Yeah, and it's something therapists are dealing with more and more. And some of them, thankfully, are getting smart about it. For me, with my psychotherapist, I when I first talked to her about my climate fears, she was minimizing. I mean, she was like, "Oh, it'll just be like a couple inches of sea level rise in 100 years or something." And you worry a lot about this, but you really don't know much about it. And so she said that, and I was like, "Oh my God!" So then I went and read like 5 books, and I came back and I said, "I was right. this is so bad." And so we had already been working together for a few years. So I guess my point with that is, even if a therapist is a good therapist, even if they don't understand what's going on with the climate, they should be able to figure it out if you push them in that direction. You can educate your therapist. Though I also agree, if you're starting a new therapy, it makes a ton of sense to stay up front. What you said. I mean, I'm extremely alarmed about where the world is going, and it's affecting my mental health. And if they need to be able to respond to that and help with that. If they can't, you're right to walk away.
Yes, absolutely. And so I don't want to spend, much of our short time talking about how bad things are, because I do that in a lot of segments. And hopefully most of the people watching know that things are horrifically bad. Of course, what just happened in Maui as well is just so horrifying. But I think most people get that. But at this rate, we're headed towards, if we keep like this, planetary collapse quicker than a lot of people even thought, who even knew we were headed in that direction. So instead, I want to spend the time I have with you talking about how to, like, emotionally and intellectually face this trauma, use the energy, that fear, that angst, that anger, to fight for, what we can save and what we can do in this time of crisis. So can you kind of talk about how many people across the globe are dealing with climate crisis the wrong way, the defense mechanisms that are being used?
Absolutely. Yeah, we humans are pulling out every psychological defense in the book to protect our minds from this threat. But of course, this is a mistake. So there's like minimization or wishful thinking, right? Oh, it'll be fine, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it, kind of thing. But and as well as, I mean, straight up denial. But luckily, we're getting some diminishment of that. Just like it's not real. But there's also, I think, a big one with climate is intellectualization, where it's we read about climate in the science section of the newspaper, and we listen to scientists about it, and we just kind of say, like, yes, I know that it's happening. Maybe I can even talk about some studies or data, but we don't feel it. We another one, I mean, one that I relied on for years is willful ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, enough to know that you don't want to know more. And so I would like read the first couple sentences of an article about climate change and just say, nope, this is too scary. I can't handle it. X. So there's all of these defenses, but we have to, like, consciously override them. We need to say to ourselves, actually, this is happening, and I am an adult, and I want to live in reality, and I want to face this. The book has 5 steps. It's a 5-step program, and step 1 is face the climate emergency. Like, really try to get rid of any kind of blinders or euphemism about how bad the situation is. But then step 2 is to welcome fear, grief, and your other painful feelings, right? Because the situation is so bad, so terrible, that if you look at it and you don't use those defenses, you actually let it in, wow, it's a lot. It's painful, which is why we use all those defenses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so important when you open yourself up to the emotions of the climate emergency that you do so with self-compassion, that you don't judge, like, oh, what do I have to feel bad about? I'm privileged. Or, oh, I feel so angry, but I'm guilty. Should really feel guilty, or whatever. Like anything like that. It's like, don't, this situation is hard enough. Please don't make it harder on yourself by, like, injecting this self-judgment, and just welcome your feelings and try to articulate them. Try to understand the breadth of feelings, especially terror and grief, which everybody feels.
Yeah. Just the other day, reading the MSNBC kind of written live coverage, so not the TV, but the written coverage of Maui, and it was just about a full day's, just about 15 pages worth. You could scroll all the updates about Maui. I did a search of those of the full day for the word climate. It wasn't in there.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, that's just absolutely terrifying. And that's like a systems level, institutional level denial. And the problem is we have all these institutions that are, like, pretending that climate emergency isn't real, but they line up with our own personal desire to have it not be real, right, to not think about it. So we have to really overcome that and decide to look at to learn what is reality, and to really look at it, and to feel everything that comes with it.
Yeah, and there are multiple reasons that the mainstream media, even the so-called liberal mainstream media, channels are not going to heavily cover it. Of course, they're also funded by Big Oil and Big Ag and the others. But then on top of that, it's not good clickbait. It's, even this episode I'm doing now will probably get half the views I normally get. But you just kind of got to decide that this is too important to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts, right? Like people within the climate community, climate communications, they'll say something like, try to keep it positive, don't scare people, or try to like limit that and whatever. And it's like, no, let's tell the truth. And if you do that, it's hard. I mean, it's incredibly painful. It's like, of course that people don't want to watch this. Who would want to watch this? It's devastating. But that's why we need to like call on our, let's say, our heroic selves or our responsible selves that want to overcome that pain and go through it. And what happens, why that's so important, is not just for the individual psychological benefits. Those do very much exist. It is always psychologically better to feel your feelings than to defend against them and repress them and shove them away.
Well, and you made a great point in the book about even some of those really in the know, the scientists, et cetera, are saying, some of them are saying, well, we don't want to scare the public. And you make a great point about, fear, when it's reality, is an incredible motivator. And we have an example, a very grand example, not that long ago in this country, in the United States, of switching our entire economy just about overnight to what needed to get done, which was World War II.
Yes. I mean, right. The idea that some climate activists or nonprofit people say of fear doesn't work as a motivator, it's really an absurd statement. I mean, fear is one of the most basic motivators, not just for humans, but for other animals. It's our evolutionarily evolved way of protecting ourselves. And so we feel fear on an individual level, and then, like you said, if we feel fear on the national level and hopefully international level, and really have the shared understanding that we are all personally in danger, your family, my family, the whole human family, that we are all in danger, that is, I believe, when we can start to actually get serious about dealing with this emergency, when we have that shared fear. So I think it's reality. Of course we should be afraid. We're all terribly threatened by this. And it's saying that we shouldn't feel afraid is really, this word is maybe overused, but it's gaslighting.
Yeah. I hope you don't mind. I'd like to play this 45-second clip of Kamala Harris getting interrupted just the other day by climate defiance. Please. And her reaction is, pretty crazy, but I guess not unexpected. But
Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, we are in a climate emergency, and in the midst of a climate emergency, 80 people have died in Hawaii. 80 people have died. Thousands are displaced due to the climate chaos. And when we were there, we're wondering, yes, I hear you, but the planet is burning and people are dying. The planet is burning and people are dying, and we're wondering if you uphold your promises. And then we're in the middle of a climate emergency. You're expanding fossil fuels faster than Trump. Expanding fossil fuels faster than Trump is. Y'all are failing on climate. You are burning the planet with expanding fossil fuels faster than Trump.
And just she's kind of smiling, and the laughing, and the audience cheering to have the person shut up. And it's just interesting to see our leaders confronted by these facts, and they ignore them, or they laugh at them, or
they do, but I don't. I absolutely love to see it. I think that protester is incredibly brave. I'm so proud that Climate Emergency Fund, where I work, has given Climate Defiance their leading funder. I just think all of it. Throwing soup on paintings and blocking roads and harassing politicians as absolutely as much as possible. This is, I mean, of course, this is what we should be doing. We are out of time. Working within the system clearly has not worked. I mean, greenhouse gases have gone up every year. And as the protester said, the Biden administration has approved more fossil fuel projects than the Trump administration. So, yeah, I have so much respect for these activists, and I really think they're our best hope, which is why, and to bring it back to my book, why step 5, the final step of this journey, is to join them, to join the disruptive climate movement. And that doesn't mean you have to yell at the politician yourself. That's not for everyone, but you can do all kinds of things. You can, take minutes at the meeting, or cook for activists, or do jail support, or do, run training calls. I mean, it's these are really advanced operations that they've got going on, and there's a place for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Is, you're right. Not everyone sees themselves as the type that is able to stand up in a crowd and scream, and others can't risk arrest because they have small kids at home or what have you. But there are various ways to work within this movement, and various aspects of the movement that play to each person's strengths, and it's important to find that area. And kind of speaking to that, one of the things I wanted to talk about was step 3 in your book is reimagining one's own life story. And I think that can be part of what's tough, is that not only do you have to acknowledge that this is happening, but you also, as a person with a life, have to acknowledge that your plans for your future, even if they were vague, are now taking a severe turn because it's not the future you imagined. But you talk about it in a positive way, almost a spiritual way, without being religious, of reimagining your life story.
Yeah, thank you. So like you said, the first, we need to confront the fact that our future has been stolen. I mean, it's been ruined by the climate emergency. I mean, when I was growing up, I was told that I had the future is bright. There was going to be progress, technological progress, political progress, right? And that I could have a bright future, and I could have a career, and all of this. And what you just need to realize that it's not going to happen. It's going to be there's going to be so much chaos and fear and loss, and that realizing that it opens up space for something new, to not just understand what the climate emergency is like externally in the world, but to understand yourself as part of that. Your life, you were born at this time in history. Maybe that's not just a coincidence. Maybe there's something that you're actually supposed to do to contribute to this movement. I think that this is a absolutely extraordinary time, unique in all of human history.
Yeah.
And there is something really there's opportunity for greatness.
What do you make of when I tweeted about climate crisis, and I'd be talking to you, and 3 of the 4 responses were someone saying it's a hoax, someone else saying well, if it were actually happening, we'd see it, and we're not. And it's just, I mean, it is just a level of, I don't know, juvenilia and insanity that's impressive.
It's really hard to know how much is bots and how much is trolls and how much is real people. I really have trouble with that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the climate discourse on Twitter in particular is really dismal. Anything about climate is followed by a flood of harassment or misinformation. And it's a big problem.
Yeah. You also talk in your book about how the systems are contributing to this. You mention capitalism, but you also make the point that it's not just capitalism. It's really more market economics. writ large that have put us in this position, putting a dollar sign on everything, on the air, the water, and could you talk for a moment about that?
Yeah, I mean, the situation that we're in with the climate and ecological crisis has to be viewed as a failure of the systems that got us here, right? If the outcome of your economic system is that everything dies, I mean, we need something else. And I don't think we have it yet. I don't think we've ever had it in history. This is a new approach to economy and how and who, I mean, everything, like who we are, how we relate to nature and to everything we do. I mean, we badly need to transform.
Yeah, and like you said, though, I guess if there's a tiny silver lining, and I know it is very tiny, this provides us in our lifetime a chance to be involved in a truly heroic cause, a truly heroic fight, which a lot of people don't have that in their lives, and we're here.
I remember as a kid learning about World War II and the Holocaust and thinking, like, why doesn't anything like exciting and epic, like why doesn't anything like that happen now? Like there was like life was more meaningful then, and this is our chance. This is everyone's chance to make a tremendous contribution to humanity and all life.
So I guess I'll wrap up here, but just if you had any last thoughts about what you would tell to people who say, they're just overwhelmed by it and they don't know how to face it, but also how to get involved. Any thoughts?
Your feelings are normal and it makes sense. You're not crazy to feel that way. You're right to feel that way. There's things that you can do to help, such as talk about it, talk about the climate emergency, talk about how it makes you feel, talk about what you think the future holds, talk about this stuff with your friends and family. And you can also talk about it with strangers at structured discussions like grief circles or climate emotions conversations. Don't judge your feelings, use self-compassion. And then most importantly, join the movement. That's the ultimate prescription. That's the ultimate solution to any of this, is movement building.
And I just want to end on one slightly separate note. I've decided to take credit for the movie Don't Look Up.
Okay.
I know that Adam McKay wrote your foreword for your book, and I also had him on my show Redacted tonight, and he said he was a fan. But during that interview, this is way before Don't Look Up, he didn't even mention that he was working on anything like that. During that interview, we talked about the corruption of government, how it's bought out by corporations, how they're running the show, etc. And I said, Adam, you have to tackle this in a movie. Why aren't you? You need to cover this in a movie. All you got to do, and I know it's a boring topic, all you got to do is attach Jennifer Lawrence, and then people will go see it. And then he ran out and he did that. So I'm taking credit.
There you go. Everyone has their unique contribution to make.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Margaret. And I highly recommend your book. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right. That's Margaret Klein Solomon. And the book is Facing the Climate Emergency, which, like I said, I highly recommend. It's not it's not a light summer read in terms of you're just going to giggle your way through it, but it is both important, and it's the first book, or the first even article, I think. I don't think I even see articles like this that both addresses how dire it is, doesn't pretend it's smaller, or we're going to get it, we're going to handle this, it doesn't tell you that the answers are easy, but it also then gives you a way of facing that, and making it part of your life, and actually feeling a hunger and, excitement might be the wrong word, but a passion to get involved in one way or another. So anyway, highly recommend it. All right, moving on. First of all, take a second to hit like, hit thumbs up, hit share. I really appreciate you doing all of that. That's what keeps this show going. That and those of you at Locals, leecamp.locals.com. And by the way, if you all could do this real quick, it is free. If you haven't joined up at Locals, there is a free version. You can do it at $0. You won't get everything. Like you'll get certain things, but you won't get all of it. But just join up, leecamp.locals.com. Join up there for free. If you're not willing to pay the 38 cents an episode, join up for free. And, that is what keeps the show going is you guys joining up over there and the supporters there. So it would be awesome if you could do that, leave multiple tabs open so you can still hear the next segment or open the tab at leecamp.locals.com and join up after I'm done. Either way. And actually, I'm going to go over to Locals, and part of the exclusive thing they'll get is I'll be chatting with them for a Q&A right at the end of this live stream. So that I will be doing in a little over half an hour. But anyway, let's get on to the next topic of Trump's indictment. Oh, yeah, and I just want to give another shout out to Climate Defiance that interrupted Kamala Harris because, yes, awesome, of course, keep doing that. Anything to stop these sociopaths from continuing business as usual, just going about their day as if nothing's wrong. Anytime they can be interrupted or forced to redirect while they're involved in all this endless death and destruction, that's what it is. Even if you don't count our wars, even if we're talking outside of our wars, the environmental destruction is, yes, now killing people. So anytime you can slow them down in one way or another or make them face this shit is wonderful. So please keep doing that. Okay, I wanted to talk about the Trump indictment. I don't normally spend any time on these things for a variety of reasons. One is I think you get most of the Trump indictment coverage from the other networks. If you want to pretend that Trump has never done anything wrong, you turn on Fox News. If you want to pretend that Trump is the only villain that America has ever seen, then you turn on MSNBC and you get your choice. Those are your two choices, right? Either Trump is the most villainous human being to ever exist, or he's not a bad guy at all, and he loves you, and he cares as he tries to see how much money he can steal from the American people. Those are your two choices, apparently. And I wanted to give the third way, the actual truth of this situation. So here's the New York Times article, which of course is on the Trump is the only supervillain this world has ever known side of things. But of course, this is mainly facts about the indictment. So I don't know how false this article is. I haven't read that much of it, but he was indicted in Georgia. Prosecutors accused Trump of a criminal enterprise to overturn the election. There's a grand jury indictment, and this one seems to have a lot more behind it. I'd say, just talking from just a factual standpoint. I'll get to the bullshit, how much of this is bullshit, and how the MSNBCs of the world and the CNNs are manipulating this in a second. But this one seems to have a lot more to it and a lot more kind of evidence and proof. Like was it 18 people indicted, and many of them have flipped, are now state witnesses or whatever, witnesses for the prosecution, which they can speak, well to Trump asking Georgia to overturn this thing, he created false electors, like people that he said were the electors, to actually hand the electoral college over to him when that wasn't accurate. Now, for those of you who have not followed my stuff for years and years, you might not know that I have covered election fraud in every way for years. And most of it a lot of it, let's say, I pointed at the Democrats. They rigged their own primaries. They said, the DNC lawyer said in court, they have the right to rig their own primaries. They have no obligation to give you a legit election. So the Democrats were involved in all kinds of election fraud. Now, the problem is, so are the Republicans. It's just different kinds. The Democrats benefit, and this is just a fact. This is not, I'm not manipulating anything here or trying to push a side. This is just a fact. The Democrats, so far, at least right now in the past 20, 30 years, whatever, benefit when more people vote. Okay? When more people are allowed to vote, then the Democrats are more likely to win. In the general. This is not talking about the primaries. When more people vote in the primaries, Bernie Sanders was more likely to win, but this is talking about the general. Now, of course, there's gerrymandering and stuff, but that doesn't matter as much in a federal election in terms of president. Gerrymandering is done by both sides to try and rig those elections, but again, that doesn't apply to the presidency. And so the biggest election fraud that is done in the federal general presidential election, not talking about other ones, but in the presidential election, the biggest level of fraud is purging black and brown people from the voter rolls. Millions are cut off in one form or another. I've covered various kinds of this purging that has gone on. One was called interstate cross-check that would claim because someone's named Tim Brown in one state and there's another Tim Brown in another state, then they would wipe them off both states' voter rolls. They'd say, oh, you are voting twice, which is not true. It's just two Tim Browns, which is a very common name, right? And so that was one way they did it. Interstate cross-check, I think, was mostly not operational, ultimately got stopped before this last election, before 2020. But the way they also do it is they'll only have a certain number of voting machines. So you put a million voting machines in the white evangelical areas, the white conservative areas, you put one voting machine in the black areas, and you go, what? We put voting machines? The black people just decided not to vote. What happened? So anyway, all of that is to say that, I don't need to relitigate all of that from years ago, and it'll be done in the next election as well. But all of that is to say that, yes, Biden did win the general presidential election, not counting the primaries, not counting the Democratic rigging that went on there, etc. Biden did win this thing. However, well, not maybe however is not the right word, but moving beyond just that, these two, as I've said many times, these two guys, Trump and Biden, as do all Republicans and Democrats in the federal level, agree on 80 to 90% of the structural issues of our country. So we're not really we're voting on the little 10% difference. It's ridiculous. And I've gone over that endlessly. All of that said, sure, Trump absolutely tried to steal the Georgia electors from this incredibly corrupt, rigged, awful voting system that we have that is not democratic, that is run by corporations and owned by corporate America. Now, hilariously in the New York, this is how crappy the New York Times is. They went to how Hillary Clinton feels about this. It's like, why the fuck would you ask a corrupt war criminal, megalomaniacal sociopath, how do you feel about Mr. Donald Trump getting indicted? It's like, she is the least legitimate person to ever talk to about anything, but we'll go to her for on this. It's just stupid. But he was indicted for the fourth time. The indictment follows a lengthy investigation, 13 charges, 18 other Trump allies. Here's how it breaks down. 41 counts in the Georgia indictment, 22 counts related to forgery or false documents and statements. So it's tough to say those don't exist. I mean, if they're holding them up. 8 counts related to soliciting or impersonating public officers. 3 counts related to influencing witnesses. 3 counts related to election fraud or defrauding the state. 3 counts related to computer tampering. 1 count related to racketeering, and 1 count related to perjury. But here's another thing, another aspect of this that you won't get from your mainstream media. You're not going to get it from Fox News. You're not going to get it from MSNBC. You're not going to get it from CNN, any of them, New York Times, is that what this really comes down to, what this really comes down to is this is a battle amongst the ruling elite. So they own our system. And really, if we were actually fighting for real change, all of us, so we're talking, let's say 1% of the population, but it's actually smaller than that. But let's say 1% of the population is the ruling elite. The 99% or 99.5% of us who are not the ruling elite should all work together to completely change this system and get rid of the ruling elite. But we don't. Instead, we say, Trump's my guy or Biden's my guy, and I'm going to be on this side or that side, and I'm going to team up with the ruling elite. I'm going to team up with the Bidens, or I'm going to root for the Trumps. But what's happening now is it's a bit of and it's been going since Trump was first elected, but it's a bit of a war between the ruling elite. Some believe that Trump makes a good CEO for America, Inc. The majority believe he does not, and that he actually was dangerous for the American empire, meaning by dangerous, I mean, could harm the American empire. And so many of them are working together to get him out. But that's combined. There's something dovetailing with that, which is they're also not making up these charges. They might be making up some of the other charges he's been prosecuted on, but they're not making up these charges. Trump absolutely was trying to overturn Georgia. There are phone calls. There are taped phone calls of him saying, find me the votes. I don't care where. Just find me the votes. You know, there are documents of him that he signed saying that he declared people electors, meaning those who actually vote in the electoral college. He declared people who were not official electors. He declared them the electors so that they could vote for him. And ultimately that didn't work. It failed, but he tried. And so the question of, did he commit these crimes? Absolutely. Now, the question of, does Biden commit any crimes? Absolutely. Just last week, I was talking about how he actually was at a dinner with a Burisma executive and his son in Georgetown or Washington, D.C. somewhere. And for years, he's claimed he wasn't at that dinner, and now it's clear he was. So his son is getting paid to basically create meetings with his vice president dad and the Ukrainian executive of an oil company. So this is the aspect of this that I wanted to talk about, and that you won't get on any of these mainstream airwaves, mainstream corporate-owned bullshit, is that both things can be true. Both things can be true. Did Trump commit these crimes, at least the ones in Georgia? Absolutely he did. Fuck yeah. This guy has been a con man and a criminal his entire life. But when you are an executive criminal, when you are the top of the top, the richest of the rich kind of criminal, you don't actually end up in prison for these things. You don't. It's just surprising when he has to pay a fine. But that's what being the ruling elite is. They're not actually held accountable for their crimes. Now, this one, they're pushing a little harder on because they're trying to make sure he can't end up in the presidency again because of that rift in the ruling elite. But both things can be true. He's corrupt. Biden's corrupt. Both Democrats and Republicans are woefully corrupt. They are owned by corporate America. They do whatever is in the benefit of corporate America, no matter how much it destroys our fucking lives at every level. They support things like the opioid epidemic for years and decades and decades. They defend companies that literally give asbestos baby powder to children. They defend big pharma. They defend big oil, big ag. Even as the environment collapses around us, that's what this system is. And is Trump also guilty of these crimes? Yeah, of course. Fucking course. So the idea that anyone would sit there and be like, Trump is the bad guy and he's the only bad guy. Or that someone would sit there and say, Trump is a great man and they're trying to stop our great man from being the president. Both of those are just pathetic, childish takes on reality. Both of them. And it's amazing how many in the independent media world are still on one of those sides. I'd say the vast majority of independent media, YouTubers, etc., who are on one of those sides are on the Trump is awesome. And they're just being mean to him because he's such a good guy and he wants to help us. And it's like, dude, how childish is this country going to be? Climate crisis isn't real because I just spit out big oil talking points. Like, it's funny. It's the same people saying that, oh, the rich rule us. The rich rule the country. They hate us. They're manipulating us. They're in the pocket of big pharma and big ag and they don't say big ag, do they? Big oil and big banks. All those people who say that, oh, it's corrupt. It's an elite cabal of assholes. They then spin around, not all of them, but a lot of them. They then spin around and say, but Trump's good. Trump's one of the good ones. He's one of the good billionaire con men. He's one of the good guys. And it's like, dude, did you hear what you just said about how it's the rich are fucking us and it's corrupt and this system is owned by corporate America? And they're going to spin around and endorse a CEO? A CEO who's been a con man his entire life? It's unbelievable that either of those sides are endorsed by anyone. So I hope that cleared up what's going on right now, because of course, if you look at MSNBC or CNN, they're having a fucking frenzy on how, oh my God, they got Trump and he's the only bad one. And finally we're going to stop him and he's getting indicted and all these things. And it's like, yeah, dude, they're all corrupt. Biden's not corrupt. Okay. Biden's been funded his entire career by big banks and big credit cards. And what the fuck do you think the big banks are? Where do you think the $4 trillion during the COVID emergency went to Wall Street? Do you think that ended up in the pockets of those who needed it, who needed help? Fucking no. Ended up in the pockets of the rich. Okay, moving on. I'm going to talk about how Biden is about to, he's risking war with Iran, and nobody seems to be talking about it. Also, hopefully going to get to how the U.S. now seems to be a little bit signaling that there could be a Julian Assange plea deal, although, yeah, we'll talk about whether that could be true at all. But all the rest of this is at rumble.com/Lee Camp. That's rumble.com/Lee Camp. I'll throw the link in the comment thread here. It's also on my locals page, of course, so check it out there. And I'll be joining you at locals. To have a Q&A at the end of this hour. So join me over there, rumble.com/Lee Camp. And it's free to watch, by the way. Free to watch and join over there. All right, let's continue. Biden is risking war with Iran. And